everyone, this is Gina. Today I am going to show you how to make a fringed gemstone chip bracelet with little flowers in it. So this is with the newest treasure bags, the spring flower collection, and you had two color selections. This is the vivid, or you had the pastel, and this is the pastel. Let me see if I can get this one off. Come here, come here, come here. Come here. Okay, I got it. And this is what these look like. I do have some more of these little tiny 7mm Czech beads and flower beads, and I will put them on the website. I do not have any more chip beads. This will work with any chip beads you want to use, or you can use something other than a chip bead to fringe with if you would like. It all works out. It would be the same process regardless of what beads you use, but this works really nice with little chips. And I used a button for my closure. I also show you how to use a toggle for your closure, so if you do not have a button like I have, you don't have to worry. You can still clasp your bracelet in a traditional way. So this is what these look like. This is what the back looks like. It's a basic even count peyote, and then we just fringe through it. So it's pretty simple. And there's no exact way to do it. You just go in and you just start putting your fringe on, and every bracelet can look different. It makes a truly unique, one-of-a-kind piece because you're just not going to get it the same every time. Anyway, this is what we're going to make. Let's go ahead and look at the material list and get started. Okay, for this project today, we're going to be using some of the beads from the newest treasure bags, the spring flower collection, and you have your pastel and your vivid collection. And we're going to be making this one with the pastel. However, I'll show you what you need from the vivid bag too. Now this turns out really cute. You can see it. I used a button closure. I can also show you how to use a toggle closure as we're putting the closures on. But if you can find a little shank button, this one it's just about the right. I did the same with the purple. It's just about the right width of the bracelet. So it's about probably half an inch. A little bit over a half an inch wide, and it has a shank on the back, so that means you sew through this portion, this little bridged portion, instead of up through the button. Find a shank button with a short shank. You don't want a great big huge shank, you want a smaller shank, and you can do the same. I bought these at Walmart a while back. It was just a package. They're just little plastic buttons, and it was a package with pink and purple mixed together. Or I bought a package of purple and a package of pink, something like that, all different shapes and types. And you can use whatever shank button you'd like, or like I said, I'll show you how to use a toggle. Then we're going to be using the little Czech flower beads that were in your bag. These are 7mm around, so they are very small little Czech beads. I have some more of these. I will list them on the website, so if you want to grab some, you can. Then I'm going to be using some 11/0 and 8/0 seed beads. Now, on my one for the vivid bag that I've already made, I used the Great Mist and galvanized permanent finish aluminum for my 8/0. So this is my 11/0 and this is my 8/0. I'm going to go ahead and use the Great Mist again with the rose quartz also, because these rose quartz are kind of a purpley pink, less pink. So I got out some pink too. You can use whatever color you want, but I think with my pink flowers, I think I'm just going to stay with the same as I used for my purple ones. Give it a little bit of a contrast against the pink, because the pink tends to be kind of pale. So I'm going to do that. But you can use whatever color you want. You can use a neutral like a gold or aluminum or a nickel, whatever you'd like. But you'll need an 8/0 and an 11/0. I'm using 8/0 round even though we're going to make a peyote base, I'm not using delicas because you want to be able to get between these beads. Delicas are a little too tight. So with a Toho, they're more tubular shaped anyway. They're kind of like a square round. They're not really round. So they work really well for a peyote also. So that's what we're going to use for our base. This is going to be for our embellishments. And then we're also going to fringe in some of our chips. Now, the purple chips tend to be a little bit smaller. The amethyst is a little smaller than the rose gold. So I'm going to take my rose gold strand apart and pull some of the more small and medium sized beads off, and the great big ones I'll save for something else. So in this one, as you can see, I used a small and kind of medium size. So that's going to work really well for that. We're going to use 6-pound Fireline and I have a size 11 beading needle. You can also use a size 12. A 10 might even work for this. And we're going to start with about 4.5 to 5 feet of thread on our needle. You will need to extend your Fireline during this process. So I will post a link in the description box beneath the video player that will show you, that will bring you to a video that will show you how to do that if you do not know how. So this is pretty simple. It looks complicated, but it's pretty simple, and it really isn't that slow moving. It takes a little bit more time than some of our very, very simple things, but this is actually not too bad. So let's go ahead and thread our needles and get started. Okay, so after you have threaded your needle with about 4.5 to 5 feet of thread, you're going to pick up another bead, anything that you have on hand that you can use for a stop bead. This is a little 3x4 crystal, and I'm just going to bring it to the end of my thread. I'm going to leave a couple inches there to hold on to and to keep from slipping, and then I'm going to go back through the bead from the tail side, and I'm going to pull my thread through and tighten it around this little bead, just like this. Now my beads will stay on as I start my peyote. We're just going to do a very simple 4-bead even count peyote. So we're going to pick up 4 8/0 seed beads and drop them down to that stop bead. The process of peyote is basically pick up 1 bead, skip 1 bead in your line of beads here. So we're going to pick up 1 bead. We're going to hold the first couple of beads together like this. And we're going to skip this first bead, and we're going to go into the second bead. Then I'm just going to kind of put my fingers over these beads and pull them down. And I will pull it to the point to where the first 2 will lay on top of each other. So you may have to arrange it. Sometimes you can pull it down and hold it to where it will go down perfectly for you, but sometimes you have to arrange it. So you'll arrange it so you have something that looks like a little T like this. A little T shape. There we go. And then we are going to do the same thing with the next bead. So we will pick up 1, skip 1, and go into the next one. And I'll just pull this down and arrange it. And now this is what I have. Now we're just going to pick up a bead, go into the sticking up beads, and go over the top of the lower beads. So we pick up 1, we'll skip this bead, go into the sticking up bead. We'll just fill in the spaces. I hold it between my fingers so I can keep it from distorting and get a little tension with a tiny tug at the end. Then I'm coming out of this sticking up bead. I'm going to skip this down bead and go into the next sticking up bead. Pull it down, hold on to it, give it a tiny tug. And we'll just continue doing that. So now that we're at the end, we will just pick up another bead, skip the first one, go into the sticking up one. And we'll continue just picking up beads and filling in the spaces on our piece. let me get a little closer. And let's go ahead and do a couple more here. So I'm skipping one, I'm going into the next one. My tail is in there, let me get that out and pull that down. Then I will pick up the next one and go into the next sticking up bead and fill in that space. Hold on to it. Once you get a little longer, you won't be covering it completely with your fingers like I am, but at this point you want to hold on to it, make sure it's nice and tight, and just continue filling in the spaces. When you get to the end, you pick up another and you go into the sticking up bead. And we're just going to continue doing that. Make sure that it's nice and tight, you don't have any gaps, and that's just basically hold on to it and give it a little tug like this. And we're just going to continue doing this until we have the length of bracelet we want, actually an inch short of the bracelet we want. Okay, so now you can see I have finished my peyote stitch. I have gone 6.5 inches because I want my bracelet to be a little over 7 inches, so 7.5, something like that. So go about an inch or 3/4 of an inch short of your final length that you would like your bracelet to be. Now, it depends on your clasping too, and the size of your button and all of those things. If you want to use a regular toggle, which I'm going to also show you how to do, all of that will make your length vary a little bit. So keep that in mind. But I have done 6.5 inches here, and now I'm going to come down to my very end, and I am going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads. So I'm coming out of this seed bead after making my last row here. So now I want to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and I'm going to go into the sticking up bead here and pull those down. And then I'm going to pick up 2 more 11-0s and go into the next sticking up bead. Now, because we have to attach our clasping to this, we need to sew through this a little bit and secure it. So I'm coming out of this last bead here. I'm going to go down into the bead underneath it. Then I'm going to come up into the down beads. So you have your sticking up beads, down beads in my last row of my original peyote before I put my 11-0s on. Then I'm going to go up into the sticking up bead in that last row there. Then I'm going to go down into the low bead on the end of the peyote in the original last row there. And then I'm going to come up through all these beads on top. So I'm going to find the holes here on the 11-0s and go through them and pull this through. Then I'm going to go through the 8-0 and then through the 2 11-0s. And now I am ready to put my button on. But I'm going to show you how to do regular clasping first, just in case you don't have a button that will work. So I am going to guess here, but I think I can pick up 3 11-0 seed beads and an 8-0 and drop them down. Yeah, I think that'll work. And then I'm going to pick up my clasp, go through my clasp, go back through the 8-0, pull this through, draw that clasp down to that 8-0, and then pick up 3 more 11-0s and go through all these beads on top here. So I'm not, well, maybe I'll pull it through. I can pull it out, but I'm going to go through these 2 11-0s so you can see what this looks like. So I'll pull this together. And now what I would do is I would sew through all of the beads on top, come back through, come through the 3 11-0s on this side, up through the 8-0, around the clasping, back down and through again, and sew that through several times to make sure that your clasping is nice and secure. Now, I don't want to do that because I want to do something different with mine. So I am going to take all this out and see if I can do this quickly. If I cannot, then I will come back and have everything ready. Let's see. Pull all this out. Okay. Let me see if I can actually rethread my needle quickly. Okay, so how I'm going to do it with my button is I am going to pick up 3 11-0 seed beads, and then I am going to pick up my button. Where are you? So here's the little button I've chosen for this one, and on the back here it has a little shank. I'm just going to go through the shank, pull those down, and then I'm going to pick up 3 more 11-0 seed beads, and go through all the beads on top. And because they are a little uneven, I will take the 2 11-0 seed beads alone, then I'll go through the 8-0 alone, and then go through the 2 11-0s, and I can get through the last 8-0 also. And I'll sew back up through this. So I'll go through these 3 11-0s and my clasp. And I got the 11-0 on the other side too. And I'll pull this through. And then pick up where I left off if I can get my needle there. There we go. Pull this through. And then sew through all the ones on the bottom again. And you're going to do that a few times. So I'm going to go off camera and do it 2 more times. You can do it as many times as you feel like you need to do to have it nice and secure for you. So I will go off camera. I'll sew through this a couple more times. I'll come back and we'll begin to do our embellishments. But now you can see I have a nice little button on here. Be back in a moment. Okay, so I have secured my clasping, and now I'm going to begin with my embellishments. I want to say very quickly with these embellishments, there is no exact way to put these on. You're going to sew through and put them on however you want. You can move back and forth, you can turn it over and sew through until you get back to where you want. If you need to backtrack, you can do, it's pretty forgiving. As long as you stay in neighboring beads, you can go diagonal, you can go next store, you can go down one and then over a couple and then put your embellishment on. You can do whatever you want. Just stay within the beads so that you're not draping, excuse me, thread over your peyote that can be seen. We're putting 2 seed beads on either side of our chips so that it covers the thread and it will cover the peyote also, so you have a lot more freedom of where you can go is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to start this with a flower. So the flower we put on a little bit differently than we put on the chips. Not a lot different, but a little bit. I'm coming out of this very end bead right here. I'm going to start right there with one of my flowers. In my last pattern, I kind of did them up and down like this and spread them through. I had them closer on the end, further apart in the middle. You can do it however you want. You can do 3 of them here, 3 of them here, and whatever. It doesn't matter. You can do however you want. But I'm going to start up in the corner here, and I'm going to start with my darker pink color flower, and I am going to find the hole. So I picked up one 11-0 on my needle, and then I'm going to find the hole in this, maybe. Boy, I cannot see it. I don't think this one has a hole. Really? How about that? I really don't think this one has a hole, guys. Okay, well, hopefully that doesn't continue to happen. There's the hole right there. So one bead and one flower, and let me back off just slightly here, and then another 11-0. I'm going to drop this down, and I want this to lay flat, so I'm going to lay it out on my strand here, and basically just figure out where it would be nice and secure and flat. So I'm going to select this bead right here. And like I said, there's no exact way. You're not going to be able to follow exactly what I'm doing. You're just going to lay it out. You're going to sew it on here like this. That lays pretty good. So now that I'm coming out of this bead, I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and I'm going to go back into the flower. So I'm coming out the other side of the bead that I attached to. I'm going to pick up 11-0, hold on to my flower, go back into the flower right here. Let me get you a little closer right there. And I'm going to pull this down. And I'm just holding the flower into place. Now I'm on this side, and I'm going to pick up another 11-0, and I can go into the other side of the bead that I started in, here in the corner. And we've sewn through these a lot. So if you need to, you can go down another bead, but I'm going to try to get into this one. I cannot. So I'm going to go into this one right here. So this one right next to where my flower hole is, I'm going to go into it. And like I said, this is very forgiving. You just find a way to attach it, just like that. So you can get really creative with this and do it however you'd like. Now I'd like a little chip kind of coming out of this side. I'm coming out of which bead here? I'm coming out of this edge bead. So I am going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up a chip, and then 2 11-0 seed beads. And on the edge, I don't like to go just straight over. So what I like to do is just kind of go at a diagonal. So I am coming out of, actually I'm not coming out of that edge bead. I'm coming out of the one next to it. So I'm going to go through the edge bead here. And again, you can turn this over too. But I'm just going to try to come out this edge bead. There we go. So you can sew under what you've put on. You can sew around. Just stay in those beads so your thread isn't all over the place. And I'm going to pick up 2 of my 11-0s, a chip, and 2 11-0s. I'm now coming out of this side bead right here. I'm just going to go at a diagonal and go into this bead here. Now, because I have beads covering this, I can go over the top of beads. You just can't go so far that you have thread everywhere. You just have to go the span of your beads. So see, that covered perfectly. And now I'm coming out of this bead here. I want to go up, let's see, where am I? I want to go up into this bead. So I'm just going to sew in the beads next to it until I get up towards the top here. And I want to backtrack so I can put something over here. So I'm just going to go into the side here, go into one bead, and then I'm going to go into the next bead, I think. And right there, I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s and a chip and 2 11-0s. And I think I'm going to come over into these beads on the top here. So I'm going to come over into this one because my chip should, the span of my chip and my 11-0s should cover that completely. And it does. And I don't like to go right into the next ones on the top, simply because I like to go at a diagonal, simply because it just looks like a, I don't know, an eye shape, and I don't really like that. So I'm going to sew away, get back into these next beads here. You can also turn it over and sew around so you can see it better. I'm here, so I'll turn it over also into this one, and I'll move myself over. See, where do I want to go next? I want to put something over here, so I'm just going to sew through my beads until I get to where I want to be. And again, there's no way you're going to follow what I'm doing. You have to do this on your own and just look at it and see where you want to put beads. Excuse me. So now I'm on the edge here, and look at it and see where you want to put your beads, how you want to position them, and just put them on. So here I want to put another chip, and I will, let's see, I'm going to go into this one here. So I'm just going to couple beads over. I know that my beads are going to cover that. And on this side, I only got one, but I kind of like the way it's pulling down, so it's fine. This is very forgiving. So as long as it's pulling and covering the beads and laying the way you want it to lay, you're good. So now I'm going to put on, from this bead, I think I'll pick up 2 11-0s and a chip. So what's fun about it is there's no right or wrong about this. You just do it. So I'm coming out of this one, and I kind of want to cover the front there. So I'm going to go into this one over here, just because I think that's going to be good. And yeah, I like that. Now I'm coming out of the side here. I think I'll put something little in here. So I'm going to pick up a 11-0. I'm going to try to find a very small chip, and I don't know if that'll work. That's kind of a not quite the right shape. Let's do this one. And here I can skip over and go through the back of my peyote. So I'm going to skip over to this bead here, because I think that'll lay nice. So I'm going through the back of my peyote for that bead so that I can then pull it down. Looks good. Turn it over. See where I'm coming out, see where I want to go, and sew to it. So I'm coming out here. I'm going to go ahead and go up through this bead here. And again, go through neighboring beads. Don't cross over the top of beads. You have to travel through inside the beads. So now I'm here, and I would like to put a flower right here. So let me see. It's pretty close together, but maybe I'll put, I'm going to put another flower. So I'm coming out of this bead right here, and I'm going to pick up an 11-0 and my other color flower. Find the hole. And I'm coming out of this bead here. So I think I'm going to travel all the way over here, because I want to kind of keep it up, but I want to have enough room to anchor it down flat. So let's see how this comes out. Yeah. So you want to make sure you have just the right amount of room. If you don't, just back out and do it again. But pull it down tight, make it flat, then pick up another 11-0. Come out of the opposite side. You're coming out of this side of this bead. Just go ahead and go back in from the same bead you're coming out of with the 11-0 on and pull your flower down. Then we're going to go to this side, and I'm going to pick up an 11-0, and I'm going to go down into, let's see, I'm coming out of the flower, and this bead is the one I attached to. So I think I'll go ahead and put an 11-0 in the opposite side of that bead I originally came out of, and pull this tight. And now you see I have my little flower anchored. And from where I'm coming out, right here, I am going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads and a chip and 2 11-0s. And I'm going to go from, let's see if I can, see if I can get it anchored in here. Yeah. Do I like that? Yeah, that's okay. So lay it out, make sure you're not doing anything to really bunch it up. Lay it out, look at it, see if you like it. And I do like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that there. And I'm coming out of this bead towards the outside now. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0s. And these rose quartz are a little bit more round and a little bit bigger than the other ones I was working with, so I just kind of have to adjust to that. So I'm coming out of this bead. I think I'm going to go cross over and go at a diagonal into this little bead here. Now make sure as you do this, when you pull your thread through, everything you previously did is still tight. That one's tight. Sometimes you have to pull your previous stitch tight when you put your next one in. So anyway, this is how this is going to work all the way down. You're just going to pick up beads and you're going to decide where you want them. You can sew through your peyote, you can sew through the back to travel wherever you need to do. So if you have put something here and you have a big gap over here still and your needle's over here, you can turn it over, sew through, and get to this side. You can do it however you would like to get to the point you would like. You can put the beads on as thick or as thin as you want. You can make it very full or you can make it very minimal, however you want to do it. So we're going to just continue putting the chips and the flowers on. However we would like to do that. You can space it how you like. I wasn't exact with this spacing. I just put them on when I thought I would like to put them on. So go ahead and do that. And when we get close to the end here, we need to secure this end to put our clasping on. So I'll come back when I'm a little bit short of this end so that we can finish up. Okay, so now you can see I've done all of my fringing except for the very, very end here. And I'm going to try to stick another flower in here too. But when you get very close to the end, you want to secure it, otherwise it will fall apart. So I've taken my stop bead off of my tail thread here, and I'm going to show you where I'm at. It doesn't matter where you're at, just sew to one of the end beads right there. And then once you're up towards the end, coming out, sew over to your very end bead on your beginning part of your peyote right here. And I'm going to hold on to this tail and I'm just going to sew into this first bead, and then I'm going to sew into the in-between bead here, the down bead, and then into the up bead here. And then I'm going to go down into this bead here where my tail is coming out. Now don't pull really hard here, just get enough tension to hold it together, because otherwise you can kind of get it out of whack. We're going to go ahead and put on the end here, and then I can come back in and finish my very end with my fringing. So I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads, and I'm coming out of this end bead where my tail is. I'm going to go into this one here. Then I'm going to pick up 2 more 11-0s, and I'm going to go from the sticking up bead to the sticking up bead in the very end here. Now I'm going to sew down and sew back up through again. So I'm coming out of this end bead, I'm going to go down into this one. Then I'm going to go into the middle one here. So you have 2 rows basically you're working in, the bottom and then the middle and then the top. So we're going here. I'm going to go back down to the bottom here, back down into the end top one here, and then I'm going to go through the beads I just put on. So I'm going to go through these two 11-0s into this 8-0, into these two 11-0s, and into the very end 8-0. And now I'm going to put on some beads to wrap around my button. Now, if you are using a toggle, you're just going to do it exactly the same way you did the other side. Pick up your 3 11-0s, your 8-0, put on your clasp, pick up your 3 11-0s, go through all the beads and come back through and sew several times through your clasping. Here, I'm going to pick up maybe like 24, 25 11-0s, and then because we all have different beads or buttons, I'm going to test this around my button to make sure that it'll go around without too much excess or being too tight. So let's see what I've got. 2, 4, 6, 8. Whoops. You don't truly even have to count, but I think my last one was like 24, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I'm going to see if that's right, because this button is a little different. It's a little higher on the top because it's a different shape. So I'm going to drop this down, and then I'm going to go just into my two 11-0s here. I don't want to sew all the way through because I may have to back out and add more beads or take some beads away. So now I've got with this circle, I'm going to hold on to it tightly and then bring my button around. And you don't want your beads to slide at all. You want to make sure you're getting a true fit here. And mine slid just a little bit, so I'm going to say I need one more bead because it slid about the amount of one little bead. So I'm going to pull these out of the two that I went into here. And I'm going to add one more bead, and then I'm going to go ahead and go through these two 11-0s. Then I'm going to go into the 8-0 and the two 11-0s here and the 8-0 on the end. Now I can go ahead and test it again just to make sure. It can still slide, so you still have to kind of hold it, but I'm just going to make sure. And yeah, that's going to go over just fine. So I am going to sew back through all of this again. And once I've gone through it twice, I will just go in and finish my fringing, and then I will tie it off. So I'm going to go ahead and sew around one more time all of these beads. That was a strange noise from my grandson. You never know what noise is going to come next in this house. Okay. Now you can sew around as many times as you'd like. You can go put your fringing on and then come back and sew around again. You can do however you would like to do it. I'm going to do another one here, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to put my last little bit of fringing on here. So I'm going to go into these two. Now, if you leave your tail long enough, you can sew it back in too. When I'm doing my fringing, I'm going to make sure that I sew a little bit of an extra loop here where these first two beads are so I can get rid of my tail. Just wanting to make sure that I don't pull my peyote out of whack. And those end beads need to be secured really well. Okay, so this is secure now. I'm going to make sure my beads aren't weird. And then I'm going to go down into this bead here. And then I think I'm going to sew over here because I want, so I'll just go within the beads and sew all the way over to this corner so I can put one more flower on to make it even. I should have given myself a little bit more room, but I didn't. This is going to be very organic looking. Nothing is very symmetrical, but I just wanted to make one where you can just kind of play around and do what you want instead of worrying about a particular pattern or whatever. Let's see if I can put my flower there. I want to go one more. I want to go one more. So I'm going to go into one more bead here. And then I'm on the edge, so I'm just going to bring it over the top here and put my flower on. So I'm going to pick up one 11-0 and one bead, or one flower, I mean. 11-0 flower, 11-0. And then I think I'm going to attach him about here. Lay it out and see if I like the way that it lays. Actually, that's okay. So now I'm coming out of this bead here. I think I want to sew, do I want to sew into the next one? I'm going to sew into the one right next to it. Now at this point, there's a lot of beads and fringe and everything. So if you let things kind of fall away so you can see, that's fine. And then bring it back up. Put it into place. I'm going to grab another 11-0. I'm going to go back through the whole of my flower. I'm getting a little beading fatigue. I've made 2 of these in a row, and that's kind of a whole day of sewing. So my eyes are a little messed up. Okay, so right there. And then I'm going to pick up an 11-0. I'm going to go into this end bead here. And like I said, this doesn't have to be precise. So if you can't really see what I'm doing, you're just supposed to get the gist of it because you're not going to do exactly what I'm doing. You're going to do your own thing. I'm going into this bead here. Make sure everything lays right. And now I can look at where I want to go. I think I want to go over here and put a little bit more fringe on. So I'm going to sew in the back of my beads and get where I want to target my next a little extra piece of thread tangled in there. So I'm going to go in this one and then into this one so I can turn it around and see where I want to place things. Yeah, I think I'm going to go from this direction sideways here. So I'm going to go here, pick up 2. And a lot of people, when I do this kind of designing and playing, a lot of people are like, that's too hard, that's too advanced. It is not. You just can't follow exactly what I'm doing because you have to do your own thing when it's in your hand. It's just one of those things you have to problem solve as you do it. It's not difficult. So we're going from here, I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to come out the back. And now I have a nice little piece of fringe there. And I'm going to call that good. I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to sew and make sure where my tail is nice and secure. So I'm going to go up through this one. I'm just sewing over to it, however I can get to it, where you're at, and come through that bead that has the tail coming out. Then I'm going to sew into the one next to it. Down here. Then I'm going to sew back into it. And now it's secure. And I can get rid of that tail and burn it down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back into this bead next to it again. And I'm going to go then up through this one so I can get to an edge. And I'm going to go under the thread bridge between these two beads and tie a knot. Now again, my eyes are not working real well, so give me a minute. I'm going to get you in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go between these two because I can see that thread bridge right there. And then I am going to make a loop and I am going to tie a knot. Pass through that loop and tie a knot. Then I'm going to go into this bead here. Make sure you don't wad anything up. Stretch it back out after you do it. I'm going to go into this one next to where I just tied my knot. So that would be this one. And then back up. And then under this thread bridge, tie a knot. Make sure it goes on the thread bridge. And then I'm going to go down into this bead and maybe the one under it, just like that. And I am going to cut this off. Oh, these scissors, I tell you. Okay, I'm going to cut this one a little shorter too. And I'm going to find this little tag I just left. And I'm going to burn it down till it melts into the beads. And then the same with this one here, my tail. And I'm going to straighten everything up. And I now have a bracelet. And I'm going to move everything aside. And this is what the back looks like. You want to keep it as straight as you can. It's going to get a little bumpy because of the beads. You know, this one has one that wants to fall in the back. But you want to keep it as straight as you can. Try not to go in a sequence of beads that aren't next to each other that will make your peyote pull and do weird things. Now, I'm going to see if this is going to fit because I made this one a little bit shorter than the last one. So I'm going to see how this works. Whoa, come here. Even with a button, I can't put these things on, I'll tell you. And that should be really easy. All right, so there's this one. How pretty that is. And then I'm going to put on this one. They turned out really nice. And here's my clasping. I think this one works a little bit better. It's a little flatter than that one, but it still works. But yeah. That's what that looks like. And again, don't get discouraged if you're watching me and you're like, oh no, that looks like too much. All beading takes a little bit of thinking and problem solving, a little bit, but when it's in your hand and you're working on it, you can do that. You truly can. I know you can. So it's really not hard. It's time consuming. So make sure you know, have plenty of time and just be patient, and they turn out really great. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.